tiny 5% of the people in the world consume 1/3 of its resources and produce almost half the non-organic waste. Those people are us. Nothing is destroying this planet faster than the way we North Americans live.
Everything told of the sea, even when we did not see its waste or hear its roar. For birds there were gulls, and for carts in the fields, boats turned bottom upward against the houses. Sometimes the rib of a whale was woven into the fence by the roadside. The shores are more fertile than the dry land. The inhabitants measure their crops not only by bushels of corn, but by barrels of clams. Henry David Thoreau.
In Cape Cod's Nantucket Sound, one of the most mysterious sights to the seasonal visitor, and even to many year-rounders, is the offshore thicket of the Weir fishermen. The poles appear every spring between March and June, as they have for hundreds of years, and are now among the sights that represent a disappearing way of life here on the Cape and up and down the coasts of the world. But even those who know what they are usually know few of the details: how they're set up, how they catch fish, and who runs them. Paul Lucas operates one of the 3 trap companies that remain along this coast, which was once dotted with hundreds of weir traps like these. Catches down through the years vary according to the migration patterns and abundance of various types of fish, and to the water temperatures at the various trap locations. A few miles west of here, the trap companies tend to pull in a higher percentage of mackerel. But Lucas's trap locations have become known as a veritable honey hole for squid, much coveted these days due to their increasingly high prices. Every coastal town in Europe, from Greece to Portugal, has always worshipped fresh grilled squid. Here in the United States, the demand has only recently begun to catch up. The Lucas family has been trapping the waters of Cape Cod since Paul's grandfather came over from the Azores.
Then my father, at 16, he decided he'd had enough school. Of course, his father wanted him to continue on, but he had enough schooling, so his father told him, well, you know what you're going to do. He said, you're going in the bow of that boat, and you're going to go trapping. So I guess it was pretty hard on him. It was a young kid, 16 years old. He fished with his father right up until 1916 on up until he got married in 1929 to my mother. And then I came along into the scene and decided, well, I might as well carry on the family tradition, I guess. And then, because my son, Ted, when he got out of school, he came, and he's been with me almost 20 years now. And we would fish the traps in the summer, and I mean, he was just a kid, and he had to pull in the middle of the boat, you know. But we got along all right. It worked pretty good. But after this year, Ted's taken over the business, and so if I'm healthy and I feel good, I'll go. Well, maybe Ted will fire me. I don't know.
So they worked together, father and son, alongside another father-son team, Chape Madison and his son Rob. Given that weir fishing has always depended upon this passing down of its techniques from father to son, it is remarkable that it has in fact survived down to the modern era of factory trawlers and the more efficient fishing fleets. But its true origins here on Cape Cod are even more obscure than you might imagine.
I know that the Indians were probably the first ones to use a trap, and I think they were very close inshore. And they were out on the flats, and the tide would go out and the trap would be high and dry, and they usually had a little pool of water in what they call the bowl, and they would go in and seine it. And I would say that probably goes back to like something that probably the Indians had, you know, when they first started, you know, was in close, inshore water.
The nets were placed on a seasonal basis in strategic locations, often near the mouths of rivers and creeks where the waters were thick with herring coming in from the ocean to spawn in freshwater ponds. When the English settlers came, it wasn't long before they too saw the suitability of this method of fishing here. Many of the traps, especially those on the bay side of Cape Cod, could be assessed at low tide by merely riding a horse and cart out to them. They caught many types of fish this way, whatever was drawn in close enough to shore to be caught in the nets. They even used to catch codfish this way, though today they cannot be found in any numbers so far inshore. But whatever the weir fishermen were catching, the villagers here soon took to marking the passing seasons by the appearance and disappearance of the strange-looking weir poles. Some years the fish showed up as expected, and other years, of course, without anyone understanding why, they just never showed up.
The Weir fishermen closed up Saturday night and have pulled up stakes. The great hauls of former years, when men could make enough in 2 months to live on all the year round, and have 1,000 or 2 left to stow away for future needs, are hardly expected now. And the weir that does not fall in debt or barely pays its way is considered fortunate. The Chatham Monitor, June 7, 1887.
Weir fishing is, at its core, a race against the clock. The squid will start drifting into Cape waters by May or late April if the men are lucky. Either way, Lucas and his men will need every day the weather allows in order to have the traps up and ready. Every year, like the other Weir companies in these parts, Lucas puts out 4 traps. It's no small job. It takes 4 days or so to lay in the poles for each trap. So long as they get 16 good working days in March, they should be fine. Unlike the rest of us, a good day for a trap fisherman is not defined by sun or rain, but by the wind, how hard it blows, and in what direction.
If it's coming out of the southwest and it's blowing about 20 or so, that's about the limit of it. It gets up around 25 or more, and you're pushing your luck. Up here, easterlies are bad. Southeaster can be bad. It's a hard wind to pull against. It's sloshy. But we kind of go out and we'll look in the trap and see how the seas are breaking through it. And if they, don't seem to be rolling in too bad, we'll make a stab at it. Once in a while we get caught, we get in and we wish we weren't in there. And we'll get out and don't go to the next one, that's all. But your time is so short that you only got a few days that you're trying to get every day that you possibly can.
For most of March, they will be gradually creating the fixed shape of the trap with the poles, one by one. They purchase the straight-growing hickory trees from a grower in Connecticut for a price of about $80 each, strip them of the bark and branches, and load them onto their low, open-hull barge. Some of these poles will break in their first year, but remarkably, some of them have been faithfully doing their job for the past 40 or 50 seasons. As they head into Nantucket Sound, it's hard to imagine a stranger sight. The barge is loaded with the poles secured lengthwise, hanging a few feet over both the bow and the stern. Using the passing landmarks, they navigate towards their underwater leases, all within a mile of shore. A lot of planning goes into their layout and orientation. Just a small variation in angle by a few degrees can make a big difference in whether a trap successfully intercepts the migrating squid or misses them entirely.
Fish can come into this bay, they can come in from any angle. You never know. I think a lot of it has to do with the wind direction, especially squid. Squid will kind of just drift with the current and the tide. And mackerel and scup will go against the wind and tide. But we don't have much choice because we have to set on our grant area, so we're there for duration. Once we put the traps in, the fish could be just a few hundred yards away from you, and you might not hit them, or just off your bowl. They could just come in and not quite make your trap, I mean, you really have no way of knowing sometimes how close they are.
A small Briggs & Stratton engine powers the water pumps. Using these pumps and a little muscle, the poles are worked 6 feet down into the sand and mud. Once the pole is in, the hose is pulled up and tied onto the next pole in the configuration.
There's three main parts to the fish weir, and it's the leader, the hearts, and the bowl. The fish will hit the leaders, and wherever they hit, they usually go for south of the deeper water, so they'll go out towards the heart. Once they go into the first section, which is the heart, they'll then follow along and go into the bowl. And once they're in the bowl, they'll go around in circles until we get there.
In the first week in April, the four of them begin at Paul Lucas's garage, which holds over $50,000 worth of nets. It's time for the nets to go on, but the labor here takes place on shore, mostly a lot of hauling and net mending. They form a human chain from the center of the garage, out the side door, and up onto their pickup truck. Before being taken out to the traps, the nets have to be mended and prepared. Weights are tied on, and then they're loaded into the barges. Very few words are spoken between these men, two fathers and their sons, but at the heart of it, two good friends that have trapped together for nearly 40 years.
When Chape and I go out into the trap or anything, we don't hardly have to say anything. He knows where I'm going. I know what he's going to be doing, and it's just clockwork. It's gotten so, it just makes it so simple, so much easier. I mean, a young guy is as strong as a bull and everything else, but he'll do everything kind of ass backwards, He's almost been just like partners, really, through the years. I don't know how he's put up with me so long.
Though tying on the nets is a pretty straightforward process, one thing has been causing Lucas some concern.
Right now we got this problem with the mung. I really don't know what it is. It's some kind of growth that grows in the rivers and stuff, and I think it's from all the high bacteria count, the fecal count that runs off the roads and stuff. It thrives on this crap. It gets on the nets and it just clings there and it holds the water. It's just like a big sponge. And it absorbs the water and blocks off the mash of the net so that the tide and the wind and the water can't flow through it. So it has nowhere to go but to pull the net over and the poles with it. We've trying to compensate for it with larger mash nets. We've increased the size, about double the size on it. It seems to help somewhat. Now that we got the net so that we can keep them on longer, they start ripping, the nets start ripping apart. So you kind of solve one problem and then another problem arises. In the last 5 years here, it's gotten worse. It's really gotten so bad now it's starting to make us wonder whether we're going to be able to continue fishing.
The fish begin to show as soon as the nets are tied on. This is when they begin to get a feeling for what sort of a season they have in front of them.
And then we'll take them out and probably about the last part of April, and we'll try one trap and see what happens, what's out there. Usually they come between the 22nd and the 1st of May is when we start looking for the squid and mackerel.
In among all the spider crabs is the first squid of the season. There are 4 of them. This year the squid are slow in coming, and that always hurts when you've been spending all spring preparing the traps for their arrival, working for no immediate pay, and gambling your labor for an uncertain quantity of fish. For most of the season, you're not actually fishing, just preparing to fish. If the squid come late, or worst of all, they simply don't come, it's devastating.
It's such a short season. We'll get probably about maybe 7 weeks out of it if we're lucky. 7 weeks of actually fishing. Lately, we've been getting about 4 to 5. And that's hurt, you know. That extra week makes a big difference, you know. But they came late and they left early. You know, you never know what they're going to do. That's the way the years are. Sometimes they'll come a week in the last week of April and stay up until the first week in June.
Taking 2 barges out to accommodate their catch, they come in and pick up the bottom net, the one that lays flat on the ocean floor. Fish of all kinds have found themselves trapped in the bowl. Sea robins, flounder, and even some dogfish. And then there are the squid. When relaxed, they swim slowly and appear dark gray or white in color. When alarmed, they turn orange or red and dart evasively. Sometimes they even shoot a stream of black ink to confuse their pursuer. As Lucas and his men pull the net tighter and tighter, the mass of fish becomes increasingly frenzied. Everything in the net is scooped out with a large dip net called a kill devil, which has a bottom chain that releases the contents onto the barge's culling board. This is where the catch is sorted. Within minutes, the men's faces are smeared with the black ink of the alarmed squid. Squid and mackerel make up the bulk of the catch, along with a few totes of other species, such as flounder, black bass, and bonita. The rest, dogfish, sea robins, spider crabs, menhaden, go back into the ocean. It is one of the most conservation-oriented types of fishing because the bycatch spend only a matter of seconds out of the water.
Problems that my father had in fishing and what I have in fishing are probably basically very similar. It's probably a little easier today than it was in his day. We have a little better equipment. He didn't have the problem of probably regulation and things like that that's coming on the scene now. Well, like the federal regulations that are on scup now, that are on fluke, and they're going to be on other species of fish. We can see it coming. We can see what they've done in the ground fishery. And I suppose it'll be more of the same in our fishery.
After hitting each of their 4 traps, it's time to head in. It's pretty easy to see what they've been catching by the steady trail of squid ink behind them. In the season's peak, around mid-May, daily hauls of squid usually hit about 10,000 pounds. On this particular day, they've landed roughly 7,500 pounds. Not a bad day. Once at the boathouse, the squid are weighed and packed in ice that is chopped down from large, old-fashioned blocks. Some goes to the traditional foreign markets overseas, and some goes to the increasingly hungry domestic markets, including the fish markets of Cape Cod.
A year like this past year, most of our stuff went to right here in this country, which is known as calamari, squid. Many of the restaurants are now starting to carry it. It's becoming very popular. The price has risen dramatically from when I first fished. At the time when I first started fishing, we used to get like 4 cents a pound. And now they're up to, this year, I don't know if I dare say, but they were well over $1 a pound.
On the boathouse wall is an ongoing record of their squid hauls. Their last record day is May 9th, 1988. By the beginning of June, the squid are gone from the traps, although in the recent past, Weir fishing has been known to go all through the summer. Not even the high price of squid this year can offset the disappointingly short season. But though the fishing is over, the work is not. The poles are yanked out much like a dentist pulling teeth. A winch now replaces a hand crank, but the basics of pulling out the gear remains unchanged. Despite weir fishing's foundation in the past, the future is in no way guaranteed. It may take a downward turn, with increasingly restrictive regulations, decreasing fish populations, and the movement of more and more trappers over to other kinds of fishing. But of course, the future may continue to be defined by the optimism of men like Paul Lucas, with their simple act of passing on what they know best.
I'm just going to play it by ear, take it 1 year at a time. My son's taking over the business, and that'll relieve a lot of the pressure from me, filling out reports and making sure the boats and equipment and everything is up to snuff. And so I'll just kind of go along as a crew member until I can't go anymore.
Lucas, as one of the 3 remaining trappers on this coast, possesses not only the rare practical knowledge of weir fishing, but also the sincere desire to keep it going, despite the lure of easier and less gear-intensive types of fishing.
There's no doubt in my mind that it's a dying business, and I don't know how many more generations it's going to go, but my son's taking over the business, and you know, I really don't know what's going to happen here, you know, and he doesn't either. None of us know. If he wants to fight for it and battle it, he'll come out. I think you always want, for your children, your grandchildren, you always want something better than what you had, you know, and you might think it's so bad, and they think it's so great, you know. And I just hope he does well, that's all.